Hello, everyone. Karen Glasser here, and welcome to this episode of The Passion Point. This is the show where we follow passionistas all around the world who are following their passion, making a living, doing what they love. And today, I'm very pleased to introduce you to our guest. His name is Paul Kirch. He is the host of Boss Academy Radio, a show that caters to business owners and entrepreneurs, where he shares his easy for me to say, huh? He shares his experiences and expertise while bringing in guests who provide high-value messaging to give support to the listeners. BOSS stands for Business Ownership Success Strategies, which is the focus of every single episode. He's also the president and CEO of Active Sales Intelligence, a sales intelligence agency known for helping its clients sell smarter, and we can all use that, I know. So I'd like to welcome Paul into the show. Good morning, Paul. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great, Karen. It's so nice to be on.
Well, it is nice to have you on. Between the two of us and our technical difficulties, we have had a little bit of a challenge. So I'm delighted to have you on today. And we're going to start.
The wait.
It is definitely well worth the wait, because I know that what you're going to share with everyone is awesome information. So we're going to start the show with a definition of passion according to Webster's dictionary. Now, Webster says that passion is an intense driving or overmastering feeling or conviction. That's what Webster says. What does Paul say?
Well, that's a great question. I guess I'm going to answer it in a little bit of a long-winded way. I was somebody I spent 21 years in corporate America always wanting my own company. I knew that's what I wanted. I dabbled a little bit here and there doing some different things, but I never had the courage to go out and start my own company. And I kept hearing, I followed Tony Robbins a lot. I kept hearing, oh, find your passion, find your passion. Well, I discovered that my passion is really helping entrepreneurs find success, because I was that guy. I spent 21 years having this great career. The more money I made, the more it seemed like I was never going to move away from that. And the more empty I felt inside, because I knew I was supposed to be doing something different. So when I did finally take the leap of faith, started my own company, I vowed that I was going to help entrepreneurs that felt the same way I was, or people that were, had a business but were really struggling. I wanted to give those people a means of support. So my passion, beyond the passion I have for my family and things like that, really lies in giving back to the entrepreneur.
Awesome. So let's tell people your story. How did you get to where you are today? We can do the abbreviated version from the earlier part, but sure. How did you get to today to be able to do what you love doing?
Well, I spent most of my career in the marketing research industry. I spent 10 years at the Gallup organization. Most people have heard of the Gallup poll. I didn't know anything about marketing research. I was in college, and a friend of mine said, hey, I've got this great job. It's near the campus. There's a lot of cute girls there. And I thought, well, that's all I needed to know. Good money, cute girls. And I thought, perfect. So I took a job doing telephone surveys and spent 2 years learning a lot about rejection, which really, I think, helped me a lot in my sales career and other things I've done. But in all seriousness, it was such a great experience. After a couple of years, I moved into the corporate office and did some other things. I was a programmer at one point, a project manager. I led a team of technical consultants. So I did all these things, but I knew that all that time, it's like, oh, I want to own my own company, but I just didn't know what to do. I never grew up with entrepreneurs around me. So I thought, sales. Sales is the closest to an entrepreneurial role. I can still have that security of the paycheck. And I like to talk a lot. So I thought that's what salespeople did. So I left Gallup after 10 years and moved into a sales role and took a job where the guy I worked for was a great guy, but he wasn't much of a leader or coach, but somebody that I did learn off of. But really, I still at that time thought my job was to talk people into buying my products and services. And I had some success with it, but quite frankly, it wasn't until I found a mentor that actually recruited me away to go work for him at the Harris Poll, which is another polling company, where I really learned the art of sales, the art of relationship building. He had a philosophy that was always be a resource. And that premise at the time, I didn't necessarily understand the value behind that message, but his thoughts were, if somebody's looking for a job, if somebody needs a connection, make that connection, help them out. And in my career, that was a turning point. When I started doing that, it was a major turning point. I started getting involved in organizations that support the research industry. So I was volunteering. I became the president of the Northwest chapter of the MRA when I was living on the West Coast. And all of a sudden, the connections I'm making and the giving back and donating my time, at times you wonder, is it worth it? Oh my gosh, it was everything.
I totally agree.
To this day, I mean, that has defined so much of my career. And when companies don't support that, or people don't get the value in, well, why should I, waste my time doing that? It's such a lost opportunity.
Well, I agree with you. It really is about the creating of those relationships. So can you give us an example of how that plays out and what you do?
Yeah, well, it really kind of defines everything. So in 2009, when I started my own company, I had been in sales since 2000, and I'd had a couple of sales leadership jobs, and I became a sponge for learning the art of sales and studied under some great people, had a couple of really great mentors. So when I thought, well, I'm going to start my own company supporting people that need help with sales, and so sales training, sales coaching, lead generation. And what I've found is that so many people out there, that is, if I can help them cross that line of stop being selfish in your approach and become more selfless, more giving, it's amazing what it does. And companies that get it have exponential opportunities for growth out of that. People that don't get it, that struggle with that idea, they're always going to really struggle in this day and age, because if you can't be giving in what you do and you can't put yourself out there and be more selfless in your approach, then you're salesy. And that's the difference between a salesperson who's salesy and a salesperson who's a relationship builder and someone who's engaging.
Such an important distinction there. And you mentioned something a little bit earlier about how you made a lot of mistakes. You kind of failed your way to success. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that a great phrase? Okay, so, your people come to you, and I totally get it. People are afraid to fail, right? They're afraid.
Sure.
And so how do you help people, just step into their scaredness?
Yeah, well, when it comes to sales training, I mean, I'm often working with salespeople that have some experience. If I'm working with somebody really green, sometimes the biggest hurdle is getting them to put themselves out there and make more effort. The biggest challenge is that most salespeople don't outreach enough. They don't follow up enough. And the average salesperson will follow up like 3 to 4 times. Well, most sales happen between the 5th and 12th outreach. And so if you're not following up, there's a good chance you're not going to get that business. And one of the things that I've loved, this phrase that I came up with, I was talking to a friend of mine who was asking me some questions about sales, and he says, well, how often should I be following up with these companies? And I said, well, first of all, I said, have they expressed interest? He goes, yeah, but then when I reach out, they don't follow up with me or call me back. And I said, well, look, a lack of response does not mean a lack of interest. There is a point where, yes, you might be hounding them. You might be I've even heard the term stalking. You don't want to do that. But if somebody's expressed interest and they're just not responding to your voicemail or your email, maybe they're busy. And I can give hundreds of examples of that. In fact, I was recently at an event in New York, and I was standing there, and this woman comes over to me, and she comes up and gives me a big hug, and she says, oh, Paul, I'm so sorry I haven't called you back. And I said, no problem. I said, I know you're busy. And she goes, well, look, she goes, it's not that I'm not interested in working with you. I really am. And we'd had a couple of conversations in November, and she asked me to call her back in January. I called her in January, no response. Sent her a couple of emails, no response. In February was this event, and she said, look, she goes, I've been really stressed, but she goes, I am very interested in working with you. My reasons for not following up were just because I was scattered. Had I not stayed in touch with her, there would have never been an opportunity. Most salespeople walk away from that. Another person at that same event, I walked over to his booth and I was talking to him, and he goes, Paul, he goes, I owe you an apology. I haven't called you. He goes, but I've got your voicemail still on my phone as a reminder to call you when I have more time. People tell me all the time, I don't leave voicemails because nobody calls back. You know what? Voicemail is the best top of mind awareness tool out there, because if I leave you a voicemail, you're forced to dial into it.
Right. And yeah, absolutely. And I'll go even more on that with the voicemail. I think voicemail is one of your most important tools out there, because
Yep.
you express your personality when you're answering the person on the voicemail who's expressing their personality, so that people want to work with you, basically. And I think people
That's right.
forget that they have that tool to use. So I think what you're saying is amazing. And I also think that people are afraid of the word no.
Yeah. Well, if you look at sales metrics, and I don't want to make this a long-winded conversation about metrics because we could talk about this all day, but there are some statistics when you're doing sales. If you start tracking the number of calls you make, the number of proposals you send, you can start to follow a pattern and say, okay, when I make X number of calls, I'm getting X number of opportunities, meetings, whatever. Over time, those numbers become fairly consistent based off of your actions. Maybe promotions might enhance it or whatever. But if you get a no, celebrate it, because it's that much closer to the next yes.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I talk to people about, that to help them stay motivated and focused, because sometimes salespeople really get frustrated and they get tired of the rejection. But if you can start to change your mindset and say, okay, a no is actually a good thing. A
Right.
no is a learning opportunity, for one. Why'd they say no? And the next call you get on may be your next yes.
Right. And I think no is also kind of sometimes means not now.
That's right. Yeah.
So, yeah. And
Absolutely.
so I agree with you. And I think you're giving us so many important nuggets here in
Thanks.
terms of sales, in terms of how to approach it. It is a mindset, because your ego is going to take a beating, in the beginning, because
Yeah.
people are new at it. So you just have to kind of know that going in and continue that. So what do you tell somebody who's lost their passion, or you meet somebody and you're talking about sales and they're totally lost? I mean, you can tell. Is there any tips or tricks or things that
Yeah.
you can say to them that can help them step into their passion?
Well, that's a question that I don't even think sales has to be in this conversation, because I work with a lot of people that have at some point in their life lost their passion. I've lost it. I've had my own company since 2009. I've gone through periods where things are like this and then things are like this, and it becomes really frustrating. Sometimes you lose sight of things. My answer to that is, often when you're in those downward spirals or those times where you're falling down, you sometimes feel like, where's the bottom, right? And even if it's a small thing, but sometimes everything's happening. It's like, your car breaks down, your wife's upset at you, business is failing. It just seems like everything is culminating in a negative way at once. So you're going, when's this going to ever end? Where's the bottom? What happens in those moments is we scratch and claw, trying to hold on, trying to turn things around. And what happens is we slow our momentum down. And when we do hit bottom, we never bounce back up as high as we could if we let go, take a chance to do some planning and get clarity on what you want. And I've done that for myself. I've helped other people do that. And I think that's the biggest opportunity, is when you feel like things are falling apart, go to the drawing board and start doing some planning.
I call it a brain dump. Open up that journal, open up that piece of paper, go onto the computer to MindMeister or one of the mind mapping programs, and just throw it on the wall. Just throw it all out there and try to get some clarity. Wise words. I'm a lover of quotes. I love quotations. And every morning I do a search as many social media platforms as I can, and even on just, Googling, to find a quote that kind of floats my boat for the day. And today's quote is from Alexander Graham Bell. And he said, when one door closes, another door opens. But we so often look so long and so regretfully upon the closed door that we do not see the ones which open for us. Love that. Love that.
Yeah.
What is a quote that, really resonates with you?
Unfortunately, I couldn't think of one off the top of my head. But I will tell you that what you just said there really sparked something in my head. And that's that everyone who ever turns it around, everyone who ever has success in their business, Well, I'm talking about mega success. I'm talking about people like uh, Warren Buffett and Anderson Cooper, people like that. There was a book I read that was called Getting There, a book of mentors. And this book was a culmination of all these great stories. She had interviewed these people one on one. And I look at Warren Buffett. I'm a guy from Nebraska originally. And, he's somebody that I've always looked up to from a financial investment perspective. And he was deathly afraid of public speaking.
Really?
Deathly
Wow.
afraid of it. When he was in college, he tried to take a public speaking course and dropped out of it and refused to do it and never thought he would ever do it. Well, he finally forced himself to go through, I think it was Dale Carnegie's public speaking course in his office in Omaha. He doesn't have any diplomas on his wall, even though he has several degrees. What he has on his wall is this certificate from Dale Carnegie when he learned to overcome his public speaking phobia. And everybody in that book had gone through some point in their life where it was either a breaking point or it was their point of turning it around. And I think that the quote that you just gave there really defines that message, that sometimes things aren't going the way you want, but that's when you need to look for opportunity because it might be there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've all been through it, right? You are a regular contributor to the business learning application called Advisor, and you're featured among experts. I mean, our viewers just listen to this now. Seth Godin, Guy Kawasaki. I mean, you're with this level of smartness and brightness, and you're able to help people. How does it feel when you are in that environment and you know that you're really making a difference?
Well, it's really empowering. I mean, I'm very blessed to be a part of that. And Advisor, what it is it's an application that has 3-minute or fewer thought leadership pieces, training insights, whatever it could be, on various topics. And so I'm surrounded by all these mega names, and so I'm very honored to be a part of it. But I know that when I get feedback from people that have heard an insight that touched them or made an impact, it makes me feel good, but it also makes me want to do more. And we need to give to receive. And sometimes we lose sight of that, and sometimes we start giving for the wrong reasons because we know we're going to get something out of it. But it does become extremely rewarding when you know that your contributions are making an impact.
So what does the future look like for you? What do you have on your game plan for, as we come up your 5-year, your 10-year, or just tomorrow? What does it look like?
Well, I came up with this concept, Boss Academy, a couple of years ago, and I was blessed enough to fall into this opportunity to host a live radio show called Boss Academy Radio. After doing it about 8 months, I decided to take it online and go into podcasting. It's been a great experience, but bossacademy.com is where I really see my energy going in the future, because I want to help those people who were like I was for 21 years. And I want to make a difference, and we can do that through this platform. So we've got some expert contributors, some great content, some training, and some things that are being launched for entrepreneurs. So I see myself playing a bigger role in helping entrepreneurs.
That's very, very exciting. And I will be happy to get that word out as you step into that as well. Okay, so this is kind of a silly question, maybe not. If you could spread passion dust on anyone in the world, what would you hope to accomplish? Who would you spread it on, and what would you hope to accomplish?
Well, I have 2 young kids at home, and I would love to raise them to see that they can be passionate about whatever they want in their life. And I think it creates a intoxicating and really contagious environment that makes the world better. So I think I would start there and just help them grow and become amazing people that understand that giving is part of receiving.
Is music important in your life?
It is. It's funny you ask that, because I was in college and high school, I was all about music. I listened to it every day, constantly had headphones on or had something playing. And then I kind of lost sight of that. And now I've really kind of started going back and putting music back in when I have music in the background when I'm working. And it's really when I'm writing, I'll have music in the background. There's something I think it's called the Mozart effect, or I
Yes,
think that's
it
what it's
is called
called.
yes, it is called the Mozart effect. Yeah.
And I've had people say, "Oh, it's like I can't write with background music," but I write so much better when I've got some music in the background. It's amazing.
Well, that's a great answer, because the next question is going to be, is there a song that you are passionate about? Is there a particular song that you put on when you need to get going?
You know, there's really not. I like all kinds of music. I'm not really big into country music, but with Pandora and things like that, I love to just put on a station and listen to it play. I've been really kind of addicted to the Spanish guitar station on Pandora lately. So
Oh, nice, nice. It's funny because technology has changed the way we consume our media these days. I mean, truly, it used to be that you would get, well, back in the day, LPs, right, vinyl, and then you would get
yeah,
cassettes, and then CDs, and then the whole thing online, Napster, and all the different places where you could illegally download stuff, and then iTunes came around, and you can get your music on iTunes, and now we've got things like Pandora and iHeartRadio and Spotify. I mean, all these stations
yeah.
online that we can just sit and turn on the music and listen. I'm fascinated by where technology is taking us. How about you?
Yeah, well, I mean, take it even further because I hardly read books anymore. I read some, but I listen to Audible. I'll listen to an audiobook because I can do it while I'm biking, I can do it while I'm working, whatever. And it's amazing how much information you can digest. I interviewed let's see, I think it was John Scully on my show. Yeah, he was the former CEO of Apple Computers, and he had said, he goes, look, he goes, information's a commodity. He says you can get answers to anything. He says it's the questions we're asking that is where we need work. And I thought that was such a great insight. But he brought up the fact that technology has just made information so pervasive and available to all of us.
Yeah, and that's such an interesting thought. It's the questions that we fall down on, and yet when you think about how Google works, you ask questions in Google to find out how to do something or where is something. So maybe that's going to help us ask questions better.
Yeah.
What do you think? I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting, the whole technology discussion, because as I mentioned, I have two young kids at home. I read an article recently about depression among teenagers. And it's become a real epidemic. And they're equating some of it to the fact that, look, my nephew, he came and visited us. And for 4 days, this is what I saw, his face in front of his phone. And I think there's just a real disconnect with the way we're engaging with people. So I love technology for certain reasons, but I think we need to get back to interacting with people and connecting.
I'm in 100% agreement with you. I always tell people that, and I'm online all the time, but that the only way we're really going to take that next step in a relationship is to take our online relationship offline. And I consider this offline too, because we are face to face, even though we're using technology, but we're talking to one another. You see my hands moving because I talk with my hands. I mean, you see my face, I see you. And I think that you are spot on. And I think that has been the challenge of the bad stuff that has come through technology, is that we've forgotten how to communicate. And yet, and the same thing, I mean, my son texts me, he's 30. My son, that's how he communicates with me. He texts me, and for a while it really upset me, because what happened to picking up the phone and having a conversation? But what I started to realize, we do have those phone conversations. At least he's communicating with me. At least he's sending messages, and sometimes we have to meet people where they are. Would you agree or disagree on that one?
Oh, I think wholeheartedly, and I think that's been the biggest problem with a lot of companies that have not changed with the times. I mean, we can't connect with people through face-to-face if they're not available face-to-face, right? So, and now it used to be you had to reach them through email, through their websites. Now it's mobile devices, and we need to find ways to connect, and it's ever changing. So yeah, I think it's an opportunity, but I also think if you don't recognize that, you're missing an opportunity to connect, and my nephew, I mentioned him. If I didn't understand that and didn't find ways to connect with him anyway, so I sent him text messages, I send him a little message telling him, how, hey, I love you, thinking about you. That kind of stuff is everything to him. If I pick up the phone, I've had phone conversations with him. It's like pulling teeth.
Right.
It's like he has no interest in, oh, come on, really? Yeah, okay, I'm doing great. Got to go. And I think that's the world we live in. And younger people growing up, I think we just need to be more respectful of the fact that that's what they need in
Right.
terms of
I actually
communication.
laugh. I literally can get off the phone with my son, and literally seconds later, there's a text continuing the conversation, because and it sounds like the same thing with your nephew, that,
Yeah,
it's like pulling teeth, absolutely pulling teeth. Let's talk, before we're getting towards the end, but I want to talk about your podcast and how people can listen in. How can they subscribe?
sure.
Where do they go?
Well, go to bossacademy.com. That's the best place. You can hear the shows. You can subscribe out there. I'm available out on iTunes. You just search for Boss Academy Radio. And, we're really passionate about helping the entrepreneur. So if you have your own business, if you're a coach or someone that's out on your own, you don't have to go it alone. And our tagline is BOSS stands for Business Ownership Success Strategies. But one of the other things that I always try and emphasize is that, our goal is to be the last boss you ever need. I don't want people out there that are on their own, owning their own company. And I know so many people get frustrated, right? It seems like a lonely job at times. We want to be there to support that. And because the world needs entrepreneurs and we need them to be successful.
Well, I think that's a wonderful mission, and I encourage our listeners, our viewers, because this will obviously not just be a video. We're all about the digital media, so we'll have some audio in here as well as
Yes.
you'll be able to see in the run sheet below, everyone. You're going to be able to see how to get in touch with Paul and to access his podcast, and maybe to get to know him and possibly work with him as well. Any last thoughts that you want to share with our audience?
No, I mean, look, I'm honored to be on your show. You and I have known each other for a few years in various capacities, and mostly it's been through electronic media. But I've had a lot of respect for what you're doing, and I think the Passion Point is such a great mission, and so it's just an honor to be on your show.
Thank you, Paul. I am very appreciative that you are here with us today. And our viewers, we know that you have a choice as to how to spend your time. And I want to thank you for making the choice to spend it with us today. So go out and give someone an awesome day, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of The Passion Point. Goodbye, everyone.